Welcome to Reflect with Ed Fassio. Get ready to experience one of the world's first 100% digitally generated podcasts, where we take a step back, dive deep, and strive to learn new things. Join us as we unpack thought-provoking ideas, personal reflections, and inspiring stories to help you stay in the know. Reflect is brought to you by the minds at ByteBrain and powered by emerging technologies from Google, HeyGen, OpenAI, and 11 Labs. Thanks for tuning in. Now, relax and prepare to reflect.
Welcome to Reflect, one of the world's first 100% AI-generated podcasts. Have you ever had one of those moments where your brain is absolutely bursting with ideas, thoughts are just firing off like crazy, but your mouth, well, it just stalls out. You have the insight, right? The answer, it's fully formed in your head, but when you try to actually say it, it's like hitting a bottleneck.
Yeah.
The words get stuck, maybe you stammer a bit, not because you're confused, but because your thoughts are just moving at a completely different speed than your speech.
Exactly.
It's this kind of invisible, almost unsettling shift thinking at what we're starting to call AI speed. So today, we're taking a deep dive into this fascinating and maybe a bit unsettling phenomenon. It's called AI-Induced Cognitive Desynchronization, or AICD for short.
AICD, it's quite a term.
It is. And at its core, it's this paradox. AI tools are, turbocharging our internal thoughts, making them faster, broader.
Right.
But our biological ability to speak, that hasn't changed. It's still the same speed it always was.
Stuck in biological time, essentially.
Exactly. So that creates this significant mismatch. Our discussion today, it comes mainly from some really compelling pieces by Ed Fassio titled Overclocked Minds, Bottlenecked Speech, plus some foundational research in cognitive psychology and speech production.
Good stuff. Fassio really tapped into something timely.
He did. And this deep dive, hopefully it'll give you a shortcut to understanding this emerging reality. Maybe give you some of those aha moments about how tech is subtly reshaping, how we communicate.
Yeah, and what's truly remarkable, I think, is just how quickly this bandwidth mismatch, as you called it, has become apparent. It's really forcing us to fundamentally rethink how human cognition and interaction actually function in this digital age.
It feels sudden.
It does. What Fassio captured isn't just an observation. It feels more like a critical insight into, an evolving human experience.
Okay, so let's unpack this a bit more. When we talk about thinking at AI speed, what does that really mean for our internal thoughts? Is it just faster? Or something, deeper, changing in how we think?
That's a great question. And it's definitely more than just acceleration. You take generative AI, like large language models, ChatGPT, Claude, those kinds of things.
Right.
They act less like a simple tool and more like a second brain, or maybe even a cognitive prosthetic.
A prosthetic, wow.
Yeah, it's like it's extending our mental bandwidth in ways we haven't really seen before. Imagine, instantly pulling together huge amounts of information, connecting ideas from totally different fields, generating really precise writing almost on the fly.
So it's not just about raw speed, it's the quality and the breadth of the thought process itself that's changing.
Precisely. Fassio puts it perfectly. He says AI tools let people write entire white papers in minutes, generate business strategies on the fly, or synthesize a stack of research in seconds. That fundamentally changes your mental rhythm.
Changes your rhythm.
Yeah, your thinking becomes more fluid, incredibly fast, and honestly, kind of fun. It's like frictionless ideation.
Okay, and this is where the friction actually starts, right? The tension. Our thoughts are soaring, supercharged. But human speech. Well, speech didn't get that upgrade memo.
Didn't get the memo was right. And the data we have from the sources, it's pretty stark.
How stark?
Well, internal thought, especially when it's boosted by AI, can apparently reach speeds of around 4,000 to 5,000 words per minute.
4,000 to 5,000.
Yep. Compare that to human speech output. On a good day, we rarely top 150 words per minute.
Oh, okay. That's a staggering difference. If you just do the quick math, that's like, over 25 times slower?
Easily.
It really puts it into perspective why we might feel that internal lag, that buffering feeling. It really is like trying to funnel a fire hose into a coffee straw.
That's a perfect analogy, actually.
Yeah.
The sheer volume of information and ideas our brains can process with AI just overwhelms our biological pipes for getting it out verbally.
So it's more than just speed.
Oh, yeah. Connecting it to the bigger picture, it's not just a speed differential. It's a fundamental mismatch between how our minds are now processing information and how our bodies, our vocal apparatus, are equipped to express it. It's a basic ergonomic challenge, really, and it's happening now on a societal scale.
And that, listeners, is where we formally introduce this term. AI-Induced Cognitive Desynchronization. AICD.
Rolls right off the tongue, doesn't it?
Not quite, but the definition is clear. A state in which accelerated internal cognition, augmented by AI, exceeds the expressive capacity of verbal communication, resulting in communicative strain or speech bottlenecking.
Mm-hmm.
Put simply, it's that feeling, right? Your brain running miles ahead while your mouth is still tying its shoelaces at the starting line.
Yeah.
And like Fassio found, and this is important, this isn't some kind of mental breakdown or a system bug, it's purely a bandwidth issue. So you might be wondering, listening to this, is this happening to me? And if any of this sounds familiar, well, you're definitely not alone.
Seems increasingly common.
It does. Fassio's observations from his own experience and talking to others show some really common symptoms, like finding yourself consciously needing to force your brain to slow down just so you can get the words out.
Right. Deliberately throttling your own thoughts.
Yeah. Or feeling weirdly mentally tired after just talking, even if your mind feels sharp and buzzing from AI work. It's that feeling. Brain racing, mouth lagging. Sometimes, apparently, it can even lead to, temporary slurring, even when you're mentally crystal clear.
And what's really striking, I think, is the contrast. Many people feel much more comfortable, more fluent, using written or text-based communication, especially through AI interfaces.
That's right. Typing feels fine, and maybe even better.
Exactly. But then speaking becomes the struggle. Fassio mentions people leaving meetings feeling way more exhausted than after hours of intense AI brainstorming.
Mm-hmm.
He even describes this sensation of a thick tongue or motor lag when you try to start speaking after you've been deep in an AI session. And maybe the key one, stalling mid-sentence. Not because you don't know what to say, but because the thoughts are just too rich, too complex to kind of flatten them out into linear, real-time words.
So that brings us to the why, doesn't it? Why is speech such a bottleneck here? What's the cognitive science view?
Well, it's a really good question. If you look at, say, Levelt's model of speech production from back in '93, it's still pretty foundational. It outlines this really complex, multi-stage path. It goes all the way from just conceptualizing an idea.
The basic thought.
Right. All the way through finding the words, that's lexical retrieval, planning the sentence structure, encoding the sounds, and finally the motor execution, actually moving your mouth and vocal cords.
Sounds complicated when you break it down.
It is. And though it feels seamless most of the time, it requires incredibly precise sequencing. And research, like from Ferreira and others in 2003, shows that if you increase the cognitive demand or put time pressure on,
Like trying to keep up with AI speed thoughts.
It's exactly. Breakdowns in fluency, incoherence, they happen pretty easily. It's actually a fragile process, very sequential. And then you layer on something like Sweller's cognitive load theory from '88. It reinforces this perfectly. Our working memory. It's a strictly limited channel.
only so much bandwidth.
Precisely. So when your mental resources are heavily tied up in complex thinking or rapid ideation, which is exactly what AI is accelerating well, verbal expression is one of the first things to suffer.
It gets starved for resources.
Kind of. This lines up with findings from Salvucci and Tatjin around 2011 on multitasking fatigue, too. That phonological loop, the part of working memory critical for planning speech, it just gets overloaded, like a digital buffer constantly getting overwhelmed.
So it's about how much we're thinking and how fast overloading the system needed for speech.
That's a big part of it. And there's another layer. Research by Kale and Salthouse back in '94 found something interesting about development, our processing speed. It increases through adolescence and early adulthood, but then it plateaus.
But it plateaus before our expressive capacity. Our ability to speak fluently and complexly fully matures. So even without AI, many adults, especially those with naturally high mental bandwidth, can experience a sort of disconnect between thought speed and verbal output speed.
So this isn't entirely new, the basic mismatch.
The potential for it isn't, no. It's not about intelligence or some deficit. It's about biological throughput. Speech is still fundamentally a serial analog process, one word after another, even as our thinking becomes more parallel, more accelerated, especially now with AI. It's a biological constraint hitting a digital accelerator head on.
Okay, and here's where it gets really interesting for me. Connecting this AICD thing to stuff we've kind of seen before, right?
Yeah, there are definitely echoes.
Like Silverman, back in '93, described something strikingly similar in gifted kids, remember? Where the mind races ahead of the mouth, leading to stammering or frustration. They called it cognitive expressive asynchrony.
Right. The thinking outpaces the speaking.
Exactly. And then there's Barkley, in 2011, noting a similar pattern in adults with ADHD. That internal hyperproductivity, tons of ideas firing off, sometimes creating verbal disorganization or difficulty articulating linearly.
Mm-hmm. The connection is there.
So the point is, AICD isn't coming out of nowhere. It feels like AI tools are basically just catalyzing or maybe amplifying that same kind of mental velocity, but now in a much broader population. It's a profound shift in how we need to understand our own minds, maybe.
And you can frame this through theories like Clark and Chalmers' idea of the extended mind from '98. They argued that tools, even simple ones like notebooks, can become literal parts of our cognitive architecture.
Our thinking process expands to include the tool.
Precisely. In today's large language models, they function like incredibly high-speed external processors. They effectively outsource tasks like language generation, memory recall, complex problem solving. Schneider and Schifrin in 2022 went so far as to call them cognitive prosthetics.
There's that term again.
Yeah. They dramatically enhance our ability to generate ideas, insights, but they don't magically upgrade our mouths or speech pathways.
Right.
So that sets up this huge ergonomic challenge. AI speeds up the thinking, but human expression, especially speech, lags behind.
Yeah.
It hasn't caught up.
Okay, let's shift to the broader implications then. Who's really feeling this? Who's most affected by this? This silent upgrade, as you called it.
Well, beyond just individual stories, certain groups seem to be at higher risk.
Like who?
Naturally, high-speed thinkers, for one. People whose cognitive profiles are already fast processing. For them, the gap between thought and speech might already be more pronounced.
Okay.
Also, significantly neurodivergent individuals, people with ADHD or on the autism spectrum, for example. For many of them, this kind of cognitive expressive mismatch might already be part of their daily reality. AI could be amplifying that.
And then there are the folks living and breathing this stuff daily, right? Tech workers, AI-heavy professionals, coders, strategists, entrepreneurs, consultants.
Absolutely. Their intensive daily use of AI puts them right at the forefront of experiencing this phenomenon. They're living the overclocked mind, bottlenecked speech reality every day.
And maybe the most concerning group, long-term, the AI-native generations. Kids growing up with this constant AI assistance.
That's a huge question mark. The concern is they might never learn how to slow down to speak, as Fassio puts it. Why would they if AI is always faster and their mental rhythms get trained at machine speed right from the start?
So what does this mean for how we interact as a society? The ripple effects could be pretty significant, couldn't they?
Yeah, they really could. We might start seeing more silent meetings. People physically together but retreating to Slack or email because it's just easier to keep pace with their own AI-assisted thoughts that way.
Less actual talking.
Possibly. And then there's the danger of misjudged competence. Imagine brilliant thinkers, people with incredible insights, appearing less capable, maybe disengaged, or even inarticulate just because their speech can't quite match the speed or complexity of their internal processing.
That's worrying, especially in certain contexts.
Absolutely. Think about job interviews. Frustrated interviews, where hiring processes lean heavily on smooth verbal articulation. They might inadvertently screen out top talent simply because of this AICD effect.
Wow.
The real danger here is clear. We risk misunderstanding brilliance if we judge solely by verbal fluency. We could be passing over innovators, strategists, leaders, just because their internal engine runs faster than their verbal exhaust pipe.
And looking long-term at those AI-native generations, the developmental worries seem pretty serious.
They are. We could potentially see, down the line, diminished verbal fluency across the population, maybe reduced skills in narrative construction, in debate, in holding complex spoken arguments.
A growing reliance on just getting the AI to say it for you?
An over-reliance on assistive outputs for self-expression, yeah. It's not just about communication styles changing. It could impact the very formation of how we think, structure arguments, and express our unique human perspectives. It feels like a fundamental shift is possible.
Okay, so what do we do? It sounds a bit daunting. This isn't about stopping AI, right? But maybe respecting our own biological limits, designing around them.
Exactly. It's not about hitting the brakes on AI progress, but about being smarter, more human-centric in how we integrate it.
So what can we do as individuals? Are there practical steps?
Definitely. One key strategy Fassio mentions is verbal rehearsal, or just speaking aloud after you've been working with AI.
Like practicing saying the ideas out loud.
Precisely. Deliberately verbalizing those AI-enhanced thoughts to actually strengthen the neural pathways for speech related to those ideas. It sounds simple, but it can help bridge the gap.
Makes sense. Anything else?
Consciously slowing down.
Or-
Intentionally practice pacing your thoughts to match your words sometimes. It's like mental resistance training for speech.
I like that. And what about workflows? How we actually do the work?
Using hybrid workflows seems really promising. Blend different ways of getting ideas out. Use text, sure, but also sketches, diagrams, visuals, maybe even just quick audio voice notes before you try to explain a complex idea verbally.
So use other output channels first.
Yeah, as Fassio suggests. Draw, sketch, or voice note ideas before you try to explain them. Give your brain faster, maybe more parallel ways to externalize the complex stuff before forcing it down the relatively narrow pipe of real-time speech.
Okay, that's on the individual level. What about bigger picture changes? Society, workplaces, tech design?
Big shifts might be needed there too. In workplaces, for instance, we really need to start decoupling perceived fluency from perceived value or competence.
Stop judging people purely on how smoothly they talk.
Exactly. Stop shaming slow talkers, or conversely, overly fast thinkers who might seem disorganized. They might just be experiencing this mismatch, not lacking ability.
And the tools themselves, the AI interfaces.
UI and UX redesigns are crucial. Imagine AI tools with built-in pacing features, maybe prompts that encourage reflection before outputting, or better support for multimodal outputs helping you generate text in a diagram, for example. Making the AI a partner in articulation, not just generation. And education is absolutely key here. We need to consciously teach kids to articulate, not just a prompt or click. So focus on those classic communication skills. Yes. Foster narrative development, critical discussion, verbal debate skills, right from a young age, even as AI tools become totally ubiquitous. It's like, think of digital altitude sickness.
Okay.
When you go to high altitude, your body has to adapt. You have to relearn how to breathe efficiently. Similarly, as our minds start operating at this higher AI altitude, we need to consciously relearn or maybe reinforce how to effectively express ourselves using our biological equipment, our voice.
You know, reflecting on this whole deep dive into AICD, it's really clear the experience isn't about being broken or flawed. It's more about evolving and becoming really aware of this invisible but significant shift happening in how our minds and our mouths interact.
And awareness is the first step.
Yeah. If AI is the accelerator for our thoughts, then maybe speech is, in a way, the necessary brake, or perhaps the gearbox letting us shift speeds appropriately.
Interesting way to put it.
Both are essential, right, for balanced human progress. We need the speed, the power, but also the control, the articulation to navigate this new cognitive landscape without just spinning out.
Well said.
What stands out to you listening right now about this really profound connection and sometimes disconnection between our accelerated minds and our, enduring human voice? Thanks for listening to the Reflect podcast, where we're telling the future. Are you in it? Visit reflectpodcast.com and share your story.
In the cyber ocean of online voices and recycled content, something different has arrived. Reflect isn't just another podcast, it's the future of storytelling, powered entirely by AI. From curating data to assembling thought-provoking ideas, we've redefined how journeys are told. Reflect is a podcast that thinks, learns, and evolves with each episode. Every tale, every insight, crafted by the most advanced AI technologies. A podcast that disrupts the industry, breaking free from traditional formats, taking you on an entirely new experience. So tune in now and reflect. We're telling the future.